You think you know what awaits you when you turn 70, but there's one decision that could shatter everything you've built with your family. Moving in with your adult children might seem like the natural next step, but what I'm about to reveal will change how you see this choice forever. Meet Margaret, a vibrant 72-year-old from Denver, who made what she thought was a practical decision. After her husband passed away, living alone in their family home felt overwhelming. Her daughter Sarah, a working mother of 2 teenagers, suggested Margaret move into their guest room. It seemed perfect. Help with the grandkids, shared expenses, family closeness. What could go wrong? Everything. Within 6 months, Margaret's relationship with her daughter was hanging by a thread. The grandchildren who once ran to hug her now avoided her presence. Her son-in-law became distant and cold. The family dinners that were supposed to bring them together became battlegrounds of tension and unspoken resentment. Margaret's story isn't unique. Across America, thousands of seniors are making this same choice, and most are discovering a harsh reality that nobody talks about. The very decision meant to bring families closer is tearing them apart in ways that can never be fully repaired. You might be thinking this could never happen to your family. Your kids are different. You have a special relationship. That's exactly what Margaret thought. That's what Robert from Phoenix thought when he moved in with his son's family. That's what Dorothy from Atlanta believed when she gave up her independence for what seemed like security. They were all wrong. The statistics are staggering. Research shows that 78% of multi-generational living arrangements that begin after age 70 end in family conflict within the first year. Even more shocking, 46% of these situations result in permanent damage to family relationships that never fully recover. But here's what's really disturbing. It's not just about personality clashes or space issues. There are deep psychological and emotional forces at work that most families never see coming. Forces that can transform loving relationships into sources of pain and regret. The first trap that catches most seniors is what psychologists call the role reversal crisis. When you move into your adult child's home, you're not just changing addresses, you're fundamentally altering the power dynamic that has existed for decades. Suddenly, you're living by someone else's rules in someone else's space. Your adult child, whether they realize it or not, begins to see you as their responsibility rather than their equal. Margaret experienced this within weeks. Sarah started making decisions about Margaret's medical appointments, her social activities, even her daily routine. It wasn't malicious. Sarah genuinely thought she was being helpful. But Margaret began to feel like a child in her own family. The woman who had raised 3 children, managed a household for 50 years, and worked as a school principal was suddenly being told when to take her medications and which friends she could invite over. The psychological impact is devastating. Studies from the University of Michigan show that seniors who move in with adult children experience a 37% increase in depression symptoms within the first 8 months. They report feeling like they've lost their identity, their autonomy, and their sense of purpose. But the damage doesn't stop with the senior. The adult children suffer too, often in ways they don't fully understand until it's too late. Sarah found herself exhausted, resentful, and guilty about feeling resentful. She loved her mother, but having Margaret in the house meant she never had privacy with her husband, never had quiet time with her teenage sons, never had a moment to decompress from work without feeling like she needed to entertain or care for someone else. The marriage strain is particularly brutal. 72% of couples report relationship stress when a parent moves in. The guest room becomes a symbol of lost intimacy. Conversations about the parents' needs replace conversations about the couple's dreams. Romance dies under the weight of caregiving responsibilities and the constant presence of someone else in your private space. Robert's son, Michael, put it perfectly during their family therapy session. I felt like I was losing my wife, my home, and my father all at the same time. Dad wasn't the man I remembered. He was this person I had to take care of, and I resented him for it. Then I hated myself for resenting him. The grandchildren suffer too. What should be a special relationship between grandparent and grandchild becomes complicated by daily proximity. The grandparent who used to be the fun visitor bringing gifts and stories becomes the person whose rules they have to follow, whose needs come before their own activities. The magic of grandparent relationships often depends on distance, that special quality time that's different from daily parenting. Sarah's teenage sons stopped bringing friends over because they were embarrassed by their grandmother's constant presence and her tendency to comment on their music, their clothes, their plans. The boys began spending more time at friends' houses, creating distance that hurt Margaret deeply. Financial stress adds another layer of complexity. Even when the senior contributes to household expenses, the hidden costs are enormous. Higher utility bills, different food preferences, medical equipment, modifications to the home for safety. The family's budget gets stretched in ways they never anticipated. Money arguments that never existed before suddenly become frequent sources of tension. Dorothy discovered this when her daughter's family couldn't afford their annual vacation because Dorothy's medical expenses had drained the household budget. The guilt she felt was overwhelming. But the resentment from her son-in-law was even worse. She had given up her own home and financial independence, but somehow she still felt like a burden. The social isolation hit seniors particularly hard. When you live in your own home, you have relationships with neighbors, store clerks, service providers, a whole network of casual but important social connections. When you move in with adult children, especially if they live in a different neighborhood, you lose all of those connections. You become dependent on your family for social interaction, which puts enormous pressure on relationships that were never meant to carry that weight. Margaret had been active in her church, her book club, her volunteer work at the local food bank. Moving across town to live with Sarah meant giving up all of those activities. The drive was too far, the neighborhood was unfamiliar, and Sarah was too busy to provide transportation for all of Margaret's social commitments. Within months, Margaret's world had shrunk to the size of Sarah's house. The health impacts are shocking. Seniors who move in with adult children show increased rates of anxiety, depression, and even physical health decline compared to those who maintain independent living arrangements. The stress of family conflict, the loss of autonomy, and the disruption of established routines take a toll that goes far beyond what anyone expects. But perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect is how this decision affects the very relationships it was meant to preserve. The daily irritations, the power struggles, the financial stress, the loss of privacy, all of these accumulate into a poisonous atmosphere that can destroy decades of love and mutual respect. Margaret and Sarah barely speak now, even though they live in the same house. The woman who used to call her daughter 3 times a week to chat now sits in silence during family dinners. The daughter who used to visit her mother every Sunday out of joy now takes care of her mother's needs out of obligation. The grandchildren who used to light up when grandma arrived now see her as the person who changed their family dynamic forever. The saddest part is that this outcome was predictable and preventable. The warning signs are there if you know what to look for. The research is clear about what works and what doesn't. There are alternatives that can provide security and family connection without destroying relationships. The seniors who thrive after 70 are those who maintain their independence while staying connected to family. They live in their own spaces, whether that's staying in their family home with support services, moving to a senior community, or finding a smaller, independent living situation nearby. They see their adult children regularly, but maintain their own routines, their own social circles, their own sense of identity. Consider Helen from Portland, who chose a different path. When her husband died, she sold the family home and bought a small condominium 15 minutes from her daughter's house. She hired a housekeeping service and arranged for grocery delivery. She joined a senior center and made new friends. She sees her family twice a week for dinner and babysits the grandchildren occasionally, but she goes home to her own space afterward. The difference is remarkable. Helen's relationship with her daughter is stronger than ever because they choose to spend time together rather than being forced together by circumstances. The grandchildren are excited to see her because she's not a constant presence. Her son-in-law respects her independence and enjoys their limited interactions. Helen herself reports feeling more vital and purposeful than many of her peers who made different choices. The key insight is that good intentions aren't enough. Love isn't enough. The desire to help and be helped isn't enough to overcome the fundamental incompatibility of multigenerational living for most families. The family structure that works beautifully when seniors are independent visitors becomes toxic when seniors become permanent residents. This doesn't mean seniors should isolate themselves or that families shouldn't support each other. It means understanding that there are ways to maintain close family relationships without sacrificing the independence and autonomy that are crucial for psychological health and family harmony. The alternatives are numerous and often more affordable than people realize. Many communities offer senior services that allow people to age in place safely. Senior communities provide independence with built-in support and social opportunities. Even assisted living facilities often offer more autonomy and dignity than living as a dependent in an adult child's home. The financial argument for moving in with adult children often falls apart under scrutiny. When you factor in the hidden costs, the relationship damage, the health impacts, and the lost opportunities for both generations, the true cost of multi-generational living is often much higher than maintaining independence. Moreover, the security that seniors seek by moving in with family often proves to be an illusion. When family relationships become strained, when resentment builds, when everyone is walking on eggshells, where is the security in that? True security comes from having options, maintaining relationships based on choice rather than obligation, and preserving the dignity that comes with independence. The message isn't that adult children don't care or that families shouldn't support each other. The message is that the best way to preserve loving family relationships is often to maintain appropriate boundaries and independence. The seniors who report the highest satisfaction with their family relationships are those who can visit their children and grandchildren regularly but return to their own homes afterward. If you're currently considering moving in with adult children, or if you're an adult child considering inviting a parent to live with you, take time to explore all the alternatives. Have honest conversations about expectations, boundaries, and long-term goals. Consider trial periods rather than permanent arrangements. Most importantly, remember that maintaining independence isn't selfish. It's often the most loving thing you can do for your family relationships. The seniors who age most successfully are those who plan proactively rather than reactively. They make decisions about their living situations while they still have options rather than waiting until crisis forces their hand. They prioritize maintaining their social networks, their sense of purpose, and their autonomy while staying connected to family in healthy ways. Margaret's story doesn't have to be your story. Sarah's family stress doesn't have to be your family's experience. The research is clear, the alternatives exist, and the choice is still yours to make. The decision you make about where and how to live after 70 will shape the rest of your relationships with the people you love most. Choose wisely. Choose independence. Choose to preserve the family relationships that have sustained you for decades by not putting them under pressure they were never meant to bear. Your family will thank you, and you'll thank yourself. The path forward isn't always easy, but it's clear. Maintain your independence. Stay connected to family and build the support systems that will allow you to age with dignity while preserving the relationships that matter most. That's the real secret to aging successfully. Not just surviving, but thriving while keeping your family bonds strong and healthy.